In this video, I'm going to show you how I edited this raw file image all in Adobe Lightroom Classic to finish here. Hello amigos, I'm Pablo Garcia, the engineer photographer. A few days ago, I spent the morning at the Albuquerque Botanical Gardens. And with the warm weather we've been having, the dragonflies are very active on the ponds and the creeks inside the gardens. And with a little patience, you can get some really nice images. Now for this outing, what I did is I took the Canon R7, small frame sensor, APS-C, and the RF 100 to 500 millimeter lens. Coupled with the R7, this gives me an effective range of 800 millimeters. Now, this lens is not a macro lens, but it focuses relatively close. So you can do some really great close-ups and sometimes even fill the frame with something as small as a dragonfly. Let me show you. Here we have this image, beautiful blue dragonfly on a yellow flower. This image has already been edited. And besides the blue dragonflies, we also have orange dragonflies. And you just have to be patient. And on this one, I experimented with different angles. If you get a little close, the dragonfly will fly away. But chances are they're going to come back to the same spot. Just be a little patient. And here I had this angle, and then I move around after it came back and tried a different angle, this one from the front. And today, we're going to work on this image. This is the final edited image. I like the blue and green dragonfly. You can see the turquoise color on the head, diagonal line, and also the more vertical line on the back and the clean background. I really like the simplicity of this image. And I think the trick when photographing dragonflies is, besides trying to get in focus, is worry about the backgrounds. Make sure that the backgrounds are clean and you're not going to have a busy background behind the dragonfly because we want the dragonfly to pop. So let's go to Lightroom and let me show you how I edited this image. Here is the raw file, and as you can see, it looks a little different than the final image. Like all raw files, it like contrast. This image was taken at ISO 640 at 500 millimeters f9. And you can see a little bit of noise. 640 is actually not too bad. We'll deal with that. And the first thing I'm going to do to this image is I want to crop it a bit and rotate it. So I'm going to crop it, and I want the diagonal line to come close to the corners. I'm going to rotate it a bit, something like that. And I want the end of this green diagonal line on the corners. A little bit more, and something like that. So that's for the crop. I think it just helps the composition a bit. It already was pretty good, I think, but now is even better. First step in my workflow, I do some global edits. So in the basic panel, I'm going to increase the exposure just a touch. And I'm going to bring the highlights down. I'm going to bring the shadows up. I'm going to hold the Alt key and bring the blacks down until I see some black. And on the whites, I'm going to increase the whites a bit. I'm going to go past and bring it back. Something like that. Now you can see some white areas on the tail, lack of detail, but we'll deal with that in a minute. Other thing I like to do is go to the calibration panel. In the calibration panel, you can play with the saturation of the blue and the green primaries, or even the hue. So if I play with the hue of the green, you can change the look. There's nothing really that I like. I'm going to leave it back at 0. I'm going to go with the blue, and let's see what that does. I'm going to, I think that's too saturated. I'm going to come down a touch, something like that. I think to me, to my eye, looks a little bit more normal. So now we have done our global edits, and with that global edit, we have gone from there to here. It's time now to work on the main subject, which is the beautiful dragonfly. And for that, I want to select the dragonfly. Now, Lightroom gives us a lot of options on the mask. I select mask. We can click select subject to see what it does. And it takes a few seconds depending on the computer that you have. And here it did a good job on selecting the dragonfly, but what I don't like is selected the wings, and the wings are transparent, and I don't want the area behind the wings being selected. So I'm going to go back, and instead what I'm going to do is use the color range. So I go under range, I select color, and I get the eyedropper, and I'm going to click on the blue, and you can see how it selected the blue. You can refine it a bit. I want to select areas of the head. So if you hold the shift key, you get a plus sign next to the eyedropper, and you can add, I think, up to 5 different times. I'm going to select, not that one, go back one, and this area right here. And I think it did a better job of selecting the dragonfly. I think this mask is good enough. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to tone, and I think exposure wise it was good. So I'm going to add a little bit of contrast. Under effects, I want to increase the texture, bring the detail and clarity. Don't go overboard. You need to be a little light-handed. You can usually use more texture than clarity. Something like that. And clarity also gives us additional contrast in the midtones. So something like that. And if we turn off that mask, you can see a subtle change. That's without, that's with. I think it just pops a little bit more. Now, one of the problems we had when we did the global adjustments is that it brought this area here of whites on the tail. So we need to deal with that. I'm going to create another mask, and this time with a brush. And I'll make sure the auto mask is selected. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to select the tail, especially the white area. And the auto mask does a pretty good job of keeping me on the tail. Now, we need to deal with that area that has the white. So what I'm going to do is on tone, I want to bring the exposure down, not too much, just down a bit, and I'm gonna bring the highlights down just a touch, and the whites. So maybe the exposure a little bit higher, and you just have to play with the 3 controls: whites, highlights, and exposure to get it to look. So this one I think is looking better. We can even add a little more clarity that will bring additional contrast to the tail. And that's going to be something like that. So if I turn off the mask for the tail, it was before the mask, and this is now with the mask. I think it matches the rest of the body better. I want the head now to pop out a little bit more. So I'm going to create another mask, and this time with the radial gradient. And that one is a great tool, right? You can create circles and ellipses. I'm going to put it right here on top of the head. And on this one, I'm going to go under tone again, and I'm going to bring it, you don't want to go too much, I'm going to bring it just a touch. I want to control the highlights, bring them down, and the whites a bit. Maybe open the shadows. This is without, and this is with. Just a little bit touch more punch, a little more light that we're getting on the head. So if I turn off all the masks, that's without, and that's with. Without and with. I think we did a great job in getting additional detail with the texture and the clarity and the color into the dragonfly. I'm going to turn off the mask, and we need to deal with sharpness and noise. I'm going to go to 100%, and you here above, you can look at a video I did not too long ago on the noise reduction options that we have in Lightroom. Because in this video, I'm going to do it a little quick. So I'm going to go to the detail panel. And the first thing I like to do is create a mask so that any sharpening I do doesn't get applied to the noise. So I'm going to move the mask until the background becomes almost solid black. Black are areas where no sharpening is going to be applied. okay? So that's not going to enhance any of the noise. Next, I'm going to go to luminance, and I'm going to increase the luminance noise reduction until the background is relatively clean, but I'm not losing detail on the head of the dragonfly. And for this case, you know, something like 33 points, I think is going to be good enough. And I can also increase the detail. With the Alt key, you can go into grayscale, and sometimes that helps you refine where you need to go. Finally, we're going to work on the sharpening. I'm going to go to amount, and I'm looking at the head of the dragonfly. I don't want to go too much. That's almost 120%. Something like 90% works for this. Again, with the Alt key, you can put it in grayscale, and that can help you. You can also play with the radius. I like to go all out and then come back until it starts to look natural. And for this one, something like 1.1 looks good to my eye. And finally, the detail, I'm going to increase the detail to 100. And you don't want to create any artifacts, so something like that looks good. So I'm going to turn off what we did with noise and with detail. And this is without, and this is with. And we added additional sharpness to the head. You can see all the fine hair on the mouth of the dragonfly and almost no noise on the background. This is looking very good. Now, some final touches that we need to do. I'm going to zoom in 100%, and you can see some white specks of the dragonfly. Now is a good time to fix them. So we use the heel brush, just make it small. And Lightroom tends to do a pretty good job in selecting areas of similar texture, and it's going to blend the colors. You know, that way you can get rid of the most distracting spots. On this one, I know if I come all the way to the bottom, there are a couple of areas here on this piece of grass. We have vertical here, so I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to let Lightroom fix it. You know, it didn't quite line up things. Remember, you can click on the area selected, you can move it up or down, and I'm going to try to get it to match there. That looks very natural. Over here, we have this other area. I'm going to do the same. Lightroom is going to select a nearby area. Again, didn't quite match, so I'm going to move it manually, and there it is. And finally, we have this other little area over here. Lightroom did the same thing. I'm going to move it and match it manually, and there it is. So all those three areas we selected look very seamless. So now I'm going to zoom out, and the final touch I want to do with this image is I'm going to go under effects, and I'm going to apply a slight vignette. Don't go too much. Usually I don't go past -10. So this one's something like minus without the vignette and with the vignette. Now let's review. Here is the final image at full screen. Here is the image in which we started, right? So we cropped the image a bit, we rotated it, we work on the dragonfly, enhancing the color, enhancing the light on the dragonfly. We dealt with the tail, and then we used the spot healing brush to get rid of some distractions. And finally, we applied a vignette, and the final image is this one. Well, amigos, I hope you like this quick raw edit of this beautiful dragonfly. I'm going to leave you here with these two videos. A recent video I did, you asked the question, how big are the DNG files that come out of the AI-powered tools that reduce noise, like Lightroom, or DxO Pure Raw, or others? Well, this video will answer that question for you. And then this other video I did quite a few times with a review of the RF 100 to 500 lens when I first bought it. And let me tell you, I really enjoyed this lens. Thank you for watching my videos. Don't forget to subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up, help me grow the channel, tell your friends, send me your comments, and I'll see you next time.